Hi, and welcome to another Genshin video. And I'm back with another Skyward Harp bow comparison video, and this time it's with Childe, aka Tartaglia. This time around, I will be comparing my R1 Skyward Harp with the bow I've been using on Childe the most, the R1 Viridescent Hunt, as well as my R1 Blackcliff Warbow, all of which are at level 90. But before we dive right in, I should point out that this video will be a mix of scripted post-production dialogue as well as on-stream dialogue, as I tested this during one of my live streams. And if you want to be a part of my next test, I stream on YouTube, so you'll easily be able to find out when I'm streaming by hitting the subscribe button and clicking on the notification bell. Now let's start things off with Childe's artifacts and talents. Artifacts, and just kind of showcase it. This rolled okay, kept it because of the crit rate, and it rolled a lot in attack, but also rolled in HP as well. It's not the greatest, but the crit chance and the attack rolled okay, so I kept this one for now. Crit damage, really well rolled on that end, but other than that, it's okay. This one is not bad, except that it rolled quite a bit on defense percentage, so it could be better, but the crit rate 10% is hard to give up. And hydro damage, really awesome crit rate yet again. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. And then finally, crit damage circlet, because I have so much crit rate rolled on my other substats, so that was great. It also has a little bit of crit rate, attack percentage, but it kind of rolled on flat defense a little bit, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. That being said, Constellation 0, kind of wishing it was already at Constellation 1 since he already had a rerun, but talents are 6, 8, 8, but because of his passive, his normal attacks is at level 7. And to start things off, we're going to use the Viridescent Hunt. 1818, that's a pretty nice number, coincidentally. And here's his stats. An awesome 70% crit rate with Viridescent Hunt, and wow, perfect 2-to-1 ratio. Isn't that awesome? Perfect 2-to-1 ratio. Beautiful. Energy recharge could be higher, but it's not the end of the day. It does recharge fairly quickly when he uses ranged mode. 90% extra hydro damage is pretty sick as well. Let's go check it out. Okay, so I think I'm going to start things off with a charge attack and see how his damage is with that. Not bad. Try that one more time. Yep, pretty consistent on that. And normal attack, ranged mode. Now let's go ranged. Okay, melee stance, 4k on the activation. Or 4.5k. God dang it! Stupid freeze. Damn it, Barbara. Okay, next I need to do a charge attack. Nice, and then melee range, or burst range. There we go. Okay, let's end this. Almost 30k, and that's without a reaction. Okay, to go over what you just saw, Childe with the Viridescent Hunt was doing about 6.8k damage with his charged attacks when he crits, while the Riptide effect was doing 686 damage per tick on the Treasure Hoarder. And I should probably mention that all of these numbers I'm throwing out are from hitting the Treasure Hoarders in this domain. With normal attacks, I was a bit unlucky as I kept getting hit, but I was doing just under 4k crits per hit, and I should probably point out that physical attacks get a 75% boost in this domain, so my numbers would actually be lower in the open world. Getting to the burst, in ranged mode, Childe was able to hit 22k crits, and I would just like to add that the effect particles looked really pretty while doing it. When Childe activates his melee stance, it actually does damage, which can really ruin elemental reactions, but in this case I was happy to see 4.6k from it. Meanwhile, his melee stance normal attacks were hitting for about 4k in crit damage per hit in quick succession. Finally, the melee burst did a nice 27k crit on the treasure hoarders. Lastly, the bow's passive was doing an extra 1658 crit hit per tick and 690 for non-crits. Some things to point out before moving on is that I have Warbow without the Thrilling Tales of the Dragon equipped to prevent an attack boost. The other two is just for more healing and getting a shield so I don't die while I'm paying attention to numbers. Hopefully you got all that, because now we're moving on to the Blackcliff Warbow. 1918, so that's 100 more, and stats is less than 50% crit rate, so on that hand, probably not the best. I probably need to get more crit rate if I want to use this bow more effectively, but it isn't the end of the world because of 176% crit damage, so crit hits are going to hit hard. Everything else remains the same. The only difference is that the bow will actually, like the passive is actually going to change damage a bit after defeating an enemy, so that's a thing.
I must leave no stone.
Another test subject. Freeze! Freeze!
Okay, the crit hits are higher, but that's those 2 crit hits was just from hitting its weak point. God dang it. I missed the last hit. I missed the last hit. You know what? Screw it. Let's test the E. Okay, here we go. Burst.
But you can't hide.
Woo, 30k. 30k crit. That's not bad. Okay, 6.1k on the 6 hit on the Electro Assistant. Not bad. So I did a full stream of melee attacks, but how about a charge attack? Okay, melee. 36k on its own. Let's see what this does. Ooh! To be honest, my original plan was to only compare Viridescent Hunt and Skyward Harp, as I never used Blackcliff on Childe, and I knew that my crit rate to crit damage ratio would be less than ideal with it. And looking at the footage I took while testing this bow, I can tell I definitely had that attitude. Off the bat, it is clear to see that my crit hits are hitting harder and even the non-crits are hitting higher. However, it is also clear to see that my Childe is getting crit hits far less than with the Viridescent Hunt, and my overall DPS is actually kind of lower. Things get a little muddy after defeating a few mobs and the bow's passive activates, giving the extra attack. It is a lot more noticeable on the bursts. Despite the shortcomings I had thanks to lower crit rate, I would actually put Blackcliff over the Viridescent on DPS, so long as you are able to get high enough crit rate, like a crit rate circlet for example. But personally, I've come to rely on Viridescent's passive to bring mobs together, which is great as it prevents me from knocking them away from Childe in his melee stance and having to chase after them and consuming more stamina. But that's just me.
Midnight Phantasmical. Back at ya. Witness the power of Gurwa.
And with that, let's take a look at what Skyward Harp can do. 2,118, so obviously right there, attack is significantly higher. Passing the 2k mark and probably one of the highest out of all my archers. And still 64% crit rate, 160 crit damage, plus the bow's passive added onto that, so pretty damn incredible. Again, energy recharge not that high, but I find that he doesn't need too much energy recharge, like his melee stance gets him quite a bit of energy back. So yeah, let's see how this one goes. 8.6. Was that 5k on the last hit? Was that a crit? Now I have my burst up. Let's do this. 28k on the crit. Not bad. Holy whoa 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 whoa. Okay, 6k. Melee attack. 5.3k on activation. Woo! Okay, now I just need to. Not bad, not bad. And then melee. 34! Oh, I'm able to hit 7k on her. Okay, do I do a melee one or a ranged one? Let's do a melee one. Okay, where are you? Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, no.
Shouldn't let your guard down.
Nice. Now this is interesting. Skyward Harp was clearly doing more damage than Viridescent, and I'll leave that comparison as that. Things are much more interesting when we compare it to the Blackcliff. Without passives, Skyward was hitting harder than the Blackcliff, as seen in the ranged normal attacks as well as charge attacks segments. However, when using bursts, at this point, Blackcliff had accumulated some stacks to give it an attack boost, and it ended up beating out Skyward Harp when doing the burst attacks. However, if we include the Skyward Harp passive damage, the Skyward Harp just manages to outdo the damage Blackcliff was doing with the stacks. Not to mention that with my artifacts, having crit rate from the weapon ends up being more valuable in giving Childe better overall DPS. Not to mention that Blackcliff stacks does run out and needs to rely on defeating something beforehand, whereas Skyward Harp's damage passive activates every 4 seconds upon hit. Okay, pretty clear to see. Skyward Harp does the most damage output, and with the artifacts I have on Childe, the crit rate kind of is important, because Blackcliff was actually doing as well whenever it was able to crit, and emphasis on whenever it was able to crit. Crit rate is just so valuable. I would actually, despite seeing bigger numbers whenever it crit, I would actually put Viridescent Hunt over Blackcliff with the artifacts I have. Now, if I was able to get more crit rate on my substats, then I think Blackcliff Blow would actually end up being better than Viridescent, but that is so highly RNG dependent that it's just not reliable so much unless you are lucky with your artifacts on Childe, or instead of going for a complete set to get the bonus, you just Frankenstein stuff to get you the most crit rate to make the Blackcliff more worth it on Childe, so that you can try and do more damage. But I like going for the sets and just trying my hardest to get something that can work, and I got something that could work on Viridescent Hunt, and that's what I end up using on Childe the most. Now, Skyward Harp obviously ends up being the better bow out of the three. I won't argue that, but because Childe has his melee stats, I found that Viridescent Hunt is just perfect for him in that he can just bring a bunch of the opponents to him. It does a little extra damage, and I'm just so used to it that I'm still going to be using Viridescent Hunt on Childe more than anything. Not to mention I have other archers to use Skyward Harp on. But yeah, if you are looking for just solely DPS and you're not just so reliant on Viridescent Hunt's passive, then Skyward Harp is the weapon to go for Tartaglia. Kind of sucks that Tartaglia kind of doesn't really show, but other than that, I'm actually kind of curious what other people think. Like, do you have Skyward Harp and Viridescent Hunt and Tartaglia but still use Viridescent Hunt on him because you're just so reliant on that, or do you use your Skyward Harp on him? That's something I'd be quite a bit curious to know. And those were my final thoughts during the live stream. What do you think? How are you using your Childe? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm genuinely curious to know how you're using him. And with that, this is the end of the video. Thanks for watching until the end if you have, and I hope you look forward to the next comparison, where I will be comparing bows on my main waifu, Ganyu. So until then, I hope you have a good day. Adieu, and goodbye.
Witness the power of Gwa.
Riptide! You're mine! Who's next?